Yesterday, Trump and RFK Jr. held a press conference where they linked Tylenol to autism because RFK Jr. had a hard deadline from Trump. Harder than the deadlines Trump imposes on himself for like things like tariffs. All of those are very
2 weeks to 2 months.
They're semi-hard to soft deadlines. And Bobby had to deliver for him here. He apparently found the cure for autism in less than a year with his work as HHS secretary. And I find it interesting that they are kind of naming the brand specifically and not the active ingredient. I mean, they're doing both, but Trump is... This is not what a lawyer would advise.
It's literally because he can't pronounce acetaminophen.
Okay,
That's why he's saying it.
And there's a video of him trying to pronounce acetaminophen, but we'll play it now because I was not sure if I wanted to play this if I couldn't stick the landing of pronouncing it myself. But thanks, Brian, for dipping his toe in first. This is Trump yesterday at the press conference speaking about this.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of Seder, well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
Oh, wow.
What was his mother taking?
Very increased risk.
Sounds very scientific, sir.
His mother's like, I just kept it to 1 bottle of wine a day, okay? Exactly. And he turned out great. That's a spurious allegation. I was just joking around. It's just a joke. We have no proof of that being the case. Anyway, that was an insane moment. I feel like the science just washed over me listening to that beautiful mind speak. Here he is with more evidence as to why this is the case, citing Cuba as an example of a place. He both cited Amish people and Cuba as places that don't, or as a
Amish
country.
people don't get ADHD and Cubans don't get autism. Yeah.
According to him. Also, there could be factors, by the way, in that Amish claim, in that there's a more enclosed kind of gene pool. The fact that there's maybe less variance, but also, dude, they have lower reporting of cases of autism because they don't engage with modern science and medicine in the same way.
Pretty weird.
It's the same way he viewed COVID. It's like, if Amish people don't report autism, it doesn't exist. Here he is now talking about how Cuba doesn't have autism, apparently.
This country is going through what parts of the world are going through. And I will say there are parts of the world that don't take Tylenol. I mean, there's a rumor, and I don't know if it's so or not, that Cuba...
Can I stop you there, Mr. President?
Rumor?
There's a rumor, and I don't know if it's true or not. Why is this being brought up?
I mean, the lack of responsibility with using the bully pulpit like this to speak about medicine, it's just so irresponsible. And we'll get to how they actually kind of know that they're being dishonest. Their own paper on this has a little paragraph that shows that they're being untruthful. But, I mean, let's let him riff on important public health information.
I heard.
Well, he sets it up. We don't have this in the beginning. He goes, Bobby wants to be careful about his words, but I won't. That's literally what he said.
That's a promise.
This country is going through what parts of the world are going through. And I will say there are parts of the world that don't take Tylenol. I mean, there's a rumor, and I don't know if it's so or not, that Cuba, they don't have Tylenol because they don't have the money for Tylenol, and they have virtually no autism, okay? Tell me about that one. And there are other parts of the world where they don't have Tylenol, where they don't have autism. That tells you a lot.
Cuba has an autism rate of 83.3 per 10,000 children in 2023. According to data from the Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network, the U.S. rate was 80.90, the same data shows. So that's more than the United States. Secondly,
they don't have the brand name
Tylenol. Why might that be? could it be
They don't have the money for it. They can't afford it.
that the Republicans, and that was one of the better things Obama did too, was trying to normalize relations with Cuba, and Biden scrapped that, and Trump has been even more hawkish.
We have a half-centuries long collective punishment policy toward Cubans, basically restricting all sorts of products on them because we don't like that they overthrew a sort of a slave society.
And they didn't like that, capitalists couldn't get a piece of the pie, whether it be drilling in Cuba or their natural resources.
Or their casinos that they had in Cuba before, under the Batista regime.
So that's why they don't have Tylenol. Not because they're too poor. In fact, they may be, poorer than the United States because of the embargo we're talking about, but their healthcare outcomes lap ours. Their life expectancy, their educational outcomes, better than the United States. Now, obviously, we have to treat these kinds of statements with a bit of care, unlike the administration, because we're talking about medical information here. So acetaminophen, all right, I'd said it, which is the active ingredient in Tylenol that he's referring to, is an essential medicine that prevents fevers. And in pregnant people, high fevers can pose a risk to the fetus. And Tylenol is important because ibuprofen, another option for, say, pain relief and fever reduction, is not, that's Advil, that's Motrin, that's not safe for people who are pregnant. Tylenol had been is considered a safer option in that way. And this was backed
not
up.
in Cuba.
This was backed up by this large study by the Swedish University and Drexel, where they looked at 2 million children in Sweden, and they took the genetics and they took family environment into account, and they found no link between acetaminophen exposure and increased risk of autism. But there is that study that Sam did talk about, I believe, or at least the litigation surrounding some of this, where they were not successful yesterday. But here is Dr. Ann Bauer, the co-author of the study that they keep citing here. The study that looked at the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy. Speaking to CBS, there was some quote in another publication where she said she was sick to her stomach that her paper was being used in this way. And this is the doctor explaining what the findings actually said.
We begin tonight at the White House, where President Donald Trump held a press conference focused on autism. During his remarks, he suggested a possible link between the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy and an increased risk of autism in children. Today, I spoke with the co-author of a study published last month in the journal Environmental Health. Now, the research linked prenatal use of acetaminophen to an increased incidence of disorders from autism and ADHD. But today, Dr. Ann Bauer stressed to me that the link she found requires a lot more research.
The risks that we identified were modest, particularly for short-term use. When we see the highest risk is for people who use it for an extended period of time. So I don't think that mothers should get hysterical if they're pregnant and have used it for a day or here or there. But they should not be using it as the first line of defense of any minor discomfort that they experience. They should be trying to use non-pharmaceutical interventions first. But it has its time and its place. While we strongly support precaution and warning pregnant women about the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy for things like nuisance pain and mild discomfort, acetaminophen is really one of the only tools we have for pregnant women. They are not allowed to use ibuprofen or aspirin during pregnancy. And things like high fever and extreme pain can cause severe outcomes and harm fetal development. Now, there should be a discussion between a woman and her physician before she takes it. But I think doctors are afraid to have even mentioned this in the past because they don't want to lose this tool in their toolbox. And it's a very nuanced statement that sometimes you still will need to use this medication.
All right. So there is the nuance that is necessary.
Allow me to enter this conversation.
But I will make a bunch of allegations without evidence. So she's in favor, in summary, I guess, of the White House kind of putting something on the Tylenol label, just basically saying, use this drug judiciously. Don't use it all the time, maybe to mitigate risk, and we still don't know if that would be the case, right? But if for discomfort reasons, if you have a fever, this needs to still be a tool in the toolbox to prevent the worst outcomes of, say, high fever in children. And so this is inconclusive at best. But this is the guy.
It's precautionary. Like,
yes.
This is pretty common in medicine, as far as I'm not a doctor. And we'll have a doctor on soon. But like, this is how they sort of talk. And she didn't say there has been, and I'm not sure, I haven't read the paper, but at least it doesn't establish, as far as I'm aware, a causal relationship with ADHD and autism with Tylenol.
No, but the FDA admits, by the way, this is Steve Inskeep from NPR, went to the bottom of the FDA statement on this, where they signal parents to avoid acetaminophen, except sometimes, and then it says, let's open the, here it is. It might be the next slide. It's important to note that while an association between acetaminophen and neurological conditions has been described in many studies, a causal relationship has not been established. And there are contrary studies in the scientific literature. It is also noted that acetaminophen is the only over-the-counter drug approved for use to treat fevers during pregnancy, and high fevers in pregnant women can pose a risk to their children. Additionally, aspirin and ibuprofen have well-documented adverse impacts on the fetus. They have to cover their ass legally at the bottom paragraph of their statement on this. But everything prior to that is to appease Donald Trump, who has embraced this fixation on autism that RFK Jr. has employed, where it's mostly about pathologizing children and giving parents this false sense of control and even hierarchy if they can compare their healthy kids to, God forbid, somebody with autism down the street. I made the right choices. I'm empowered in the exact right way.
See, not even pathologizing children. Doesn't it seem like it's pathologizing mothers?
Yes.
Where Kennedy and Trump get together and say the problem is you're taking too much pain relief.
The problem that we have in this country with healthcare is related to the fact it is because we do not guarantee it, and we do not have universal healthcare like essentially every other Western industrialized nation. And what this libertarian healthcare approach is about, which is, one, treating people with autism or with disabilities as freaks.
Never pay taxes.
Who can't participate in society, and almost as a pathogen that needs to be outrooted, as opposed to autism being a spectrum, and many folks on the autism spectrum contributing greatly to our society, despite what RFK would say.
They'll never pay $1 in taxes.
And lastly, it's about making it so that you feel empowered over your health care individually, but without there being any concept of public health or communality to it, or community.
Right, because just one quick note is that doctor said what should happen is the patient should have a conversation or relationship with their doctor where they talk about those things.
Exactly.
Do we finance that in this country? No.
No. But the brainworm told RFK, so we have to all comply now.
Glad that's sorted.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.